You are live.
Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on Tuesday at 8 p.m. every single week on New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening. And we'll see how long my co-hosts or guests or whatever they're called nowadays, I'm not sure really, how long they stay awake for, because we've got Ashwin and Stephen joining. How you doing, Ashwin?
I'm still awake at the moment, but it's all right. We're in New Zealand, so you can call us comrades.
Comrades. Oh, dearie me, he takes it straight down the political route, but we'll try and keep clear of that
one. Good evening, comrade Stephen.
Yes, good evening, guys, and it's always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM. And just a little bit of advice for you, Ashwin. I know that you're tired, but may the 4th be with you.
Hey, nice. Now
yes,
we've still got some listeners left after us.
And don't forget that tomorrow is Revenge of the 5th.
Oh.
Of course, it is International Star Wars Days as well, guys. So, yeah.
Oh dear. And yes, evening, comrades. Evening, Jordan. Comrade Jordan, getting in touch, joining in from the live chat. You can join us on live chat on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. If you listen to the podcast, by the way, because also yes, this also comes out of the podcast, folks. So you can listen to the recording as you're going to a commute. If you don't catch us live, that is. And there's another one as well that's come from the Mandalorian, which is something is the way. So something anyway, doesn't matter. I've forgotten it now, but there's a new one as well. It's basically the whole of May is Star Wars, or it's Mandalorian May. Anyway, little diversion there. So let's kick off with some news and evening stormtroopers, says Aaron. So Dominic Bird is to go and join the Canes. Thoughts on that one, Stephen?
Oh, you caught me on the. Oh yeah, listen, good. It's a good signing. It's sort of it's obviously an area that we've been well known that the Hurricanes are struggling with. They're certainly not the tallest line out around, but he'll definitely add some height in that much needed position, plus a bit of experience as well in their type 5.
Awesome.
No, absolutely. I think it's a fantastic buy for the Canes, actually, because when you look at the way that their loosies have always operated in the last couple of years, they've always had a good bunch of loosies going around that really keep them in the game. And before the game starts, the question marks on the Hurricanes is always around their type 5 and whether they've the strength up front, and they do get pounded like by the bigger teams, the bigger forward packs. So to pick up a Dom Bird, who's over 2 meters, 206, I think, and he's going to add plenty of grunt to their forward pack as well as in the lineout. So I think it's a fantastic buy for them.
Yeah, some ballast. It's always been about the size and the weight of that front 5, and they've got lots of guys who are sort of who are kind of lock sixers in your kind of Liam Mitchell and Via Fafita, who can be sort of I think much better as jumping sixers rather than as locking. Rather than locks, but so I think as you say, a cracking signing for them. Do I expect him to come back into the All Blacks? No, but
well, how old is he?
As the rugby player goes, I think it'll be absolutely solid for them. How old is he? I don't know.
One moment, please, caller.
And while he's doing that, look, there's I've been listening to the Blood and Mud podcast, which is not one to listen to in the car with your kids, by the way. A little bit of swearing in it, but is a fun podcast from the podcast from the UK. But what they have, one of the things they've been talking about is a Club 15, where they're looking at players who are really good at club level, but not quite that next level up for international.
Can't take the step up.
Can't take the step up. So I've been thinking we should probably do something similar for the an all-time NPC team. Looking at players who are great at provincial level, but don't quite step up to Super Rugby. So I think
or great at Super Rugby and never make it to, and really shouldn't have been All Blacks or even an All Black captain. But anyway, that's another story.
That's
Well, I could probably think of 3 guys who didn't step up to the next level, and are probably better at talking about the game than actually playing the game.
Yeah. Fair cop that. Fair cop.
I know. Fair cop.
oh yeah.
I don't know. If my dad had taken me to
people would be
rugby, maybe I
way
could have
better
been
than
an
we've ever been at rugby. But hey, but some players that sprung to my mind, and someone that I thought should Potros down at Taranaki. Who's been a good servant for Taranaki, who I thought personally thought should get. I've been impressed with him at playing for Taranaki, but he's never got that Super Rugby opportunity.
Yeah, but then our favorite player of recent times to talk like that is our first 5 friend from Hawke's Bay and Lincoln McClutchy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That would probably be the classic, because Ruben Love's come along now, but you look at a McClutchy and geez,
he's still got time in his side there, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
Yep.
Whereas I would say someone like Marty McKenzie never quite nailed it at Super Rugby. Was a great, but really, really useful, a very good player at provincial level as well. So yeah.
Yep. Hey, just speaking of age, so Dominic Boots only 30. And and effectively he signed up with the Canes, and he's gone back to his roots because he's actually from the Hawke's Bay.
There we go.
Yeah, Waipukarau.
Cool. So look, so maybe he isn't with a chance of perhaps he's come back to make a run for the 2023 Rugby World Cup. He's heard there's not many locks and has signed up, and then suddenly all these young locks arrive. He's like, oh beep, I've got signed up now, and there's all these young locks arriving. I'm not sure that's not allowed. Talking of signings or non-signings, so far we've not heard of any signings for Manoa Samoa. Not Manoa Samoa. I'm talking about
Pacific, the Pacific team.
Yes, Manoa Pacifica. Sorry, thank you, and also Fiji Drua, and that's partially because they haven't actually got themselves a definite license yet. Let's be honest. But one player that has said he won't be turning out for them is Nadolo. He won't be
turning out for the Drua.
For the Fiji Drua, that is, yep. And he said that because he doesn't want to take up space for an up-and-coming player. Look, to me, I think Nadolo would be a fantastic signing for Fiji Drua. On the fact that he brings leadership, he'll be a great mentor for those players and could help bring players through. So it cannot be an entire team of 21-year-olds. It does need a few 30-year-olds who know how to be professionals, who have the biggest been a bit naughty in the past as well. But know what those kids are going through and help bring them through it.
The biggest thing that he can bring actually is sure, it'll be great for you. Need experience in the team. You need to show those kids the way, set the benchmarks. I mean, we've got a really good example. Bowden Barrett comes along, and the training levels at the Blues went up. He's obviously gone to Japan, and you can see that maybe they're not putting the extras in. So you need that experience that comes along to show how professionalism works and what you need to do. But the most important thing that Ndolo brings along is the marketing. It's the big name in the team. And, Fiji, the Drua playing in Fiji, I don't think they'll have problems selling tickets, but it still helps to sell. When you've got a big name that signs up, I think it's a convenient excuse to say, I don't want to take up a spot. The reality is, we all know what the reality is. The dollars are bigger in Europe, and that's what he's sticking with.
Yeah, and also, the credibility a name like him would bring. I mean, ex-Fiji captain, all of that kudos that comes with it, the mana would have been fantastic. So yeah, I think you're right. It is a financial thing, and look, he has a life already in Europe, so not a surprise.
Been there some time now.
Oh, absolutely, yes. But I mean, he went over there, went to Exeter, and had a little bit, a couple of issues in Exeter. First off, he arrived on his Australian passport or New Zealand passport rather than his Fijian one, which meant that he didn't classify as a Fijian player. So the Exeter ended up getting fined for having too many foreigners in their team.
Because Fiji is not a foreign country.
The Pacific Islands are exempt from that to help with the growth of the game, obviously, and not stealing their players.
That is news to me. I did not know that. I did not know that they were exempt. And it's funny, it's just like just recently, I think Steve saw it as well. And it's like, the continual pot shots at New Zealanders poaching Pacific Island players. And then you have Europe basically saying, hey, open door policy for Pacific Island players. Good luck trying to set up a Moana Pacific team and a Drua team when you got an open door over in Europe with big dollars.
Yeah.
So, and then there was the police. The police were called to a house that he was at for some reason, and he gave false information and gave someone else's name.
That wasn't another party that Josh Ioane were throwing, was it?
Oh,
no. Josh Ioane was way too young for that. We're going back. We're going back probably about 10 years now, or nearly that way. So it was when he was young, and he's clearly learned from his errors and become a much better player and person as well. But yes, he had a bit of one of those players who I think about as an Exeter fan. You think, he could so have he could be such a hero, such a massive player for us, and then but he was too young, in a what's the word I'm looking for, in a new environment and stuff, and just hadn't matured.
Guys, if I can just kind of while we were just chatting before, I decided to look back. You talk about unlucky players that have never played Super Rugby, so I decided to look back at one of our more successful teams that we've had at Junior Rugby World Cups, and of course that was the 2017 team that won the World Cup over in Georgia. And as we know, a lot of celebrated names have gone on to become All Blacks. Dalton Papa Ali and also Geordie Barrett, Caleb Clark. Just to name a few, but there's obviously a lot more from that team. But a couple of names that appeared in that particular team was Sam Slade, who was one of the locks for the Junior All Blacks at the time. So never quite really stamped his authority or sort of made it in. Has obviously bounced around a couple of unions with counties Manukau and the Manawatu Turbos, but has never quite cracked Super Rugby. But interestingly enough, we all marvel at the skills of Lester Whaianuku at the moment, but whatever happened to the brother, Timo Whaianuku, who we know is, on his day can be a devastating player, but has never quite cracked it in Super Rugby. So that's another couple of names to add to the list you mentioned before. Lincoln McClutchy is definitely one that comes to mind, and you mentioned Jason Potros as well as a player being totally unlucky. But I also looked at the 2018 team that played at the Junior World Cup, and boy, there's some good names here. Tom Christie, Devon Flanders, Tom Florence, who turned out on the weekend for the Chiefs, but also guys like Hoskins Satutu was in that team as well. But there's also interesting. Scott Gregory was in that team as well. Billy Proctor, Harry Plummer, Balin Sullivan, Caleb Trask. But there's some guys who have just sort of fallen off the radar. Interestingly enough, Lester Whaianuku was in that particular side, but a guy by the name of Flynn Thomas had a big reputation as a hooker for Southland. He's never quite kicked on. Or Ricky Jackson, another hooker, I think may have been in the Highlanders as cover. So it's really interesting how a lot of these guys, even though obviously making New Zealand juniors, but it's not a prerequisite to going on and becoming a Super Rugby player full time.
No, I'm just trying to find that list you had there to try and bring up the so I could bring up bring the list on screen because the final. Anyway, I've not found it quickly enough. But yeah, so folks, let us know do let us know NPC players who you think didn't quite make it at Super Rugby, who are fantastic NPC players, because I think we'll try and put together a 15 in the coming weeks at some point, and we'll add some players in there. So that'll be a fun one.
How far do we go back?
Oh, forever. If you want to. Well, actually, no. It's got to be during professionalism, because Super Rugby's got to have existed.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty soon. I can't remember what I did yesterday, so it's got to be within the last 2 or 3 years.
What are we talking about?
Somebody here says, is England still using the EU law allowing Pacific Island players from foreign quotas due to Brexit? Who knows what's happening due to Brexit? Sorry, Haven't got a clue on that one. That it may change, and they might change that one. Some questions actually from the live chat here from Jordan. So quick, with RTS going to the Blues, where does that leave players like Zahn Sullivan and Perifetta? Well, they're talking about RTS playing in the 13 jersey or the 12 jersey. So I think it leaves Zahn Sullivan and Perifetta in absolutely fine situation. He just because he plays fullback in the league code doesn't mean he's going to play fullback in the union code. Well, actually, Ashwin, Stephen, where do you see RTS slotting in?
Initially, I see him as a probably a winger, just to get his head around the game, get his
bearings.
He's probably just going to need somebody at the back talking to him. So yeah, I think probably on one of those wings at this point in time. What you've also got to remember, the other wingers that are in play, the likes of Ratamavuki, Nepkins, and also Narawa are pretty young guys, as well. So that's interesting. I'll be very surprised if they re-sign Bryce Heem next year. So I just wonder if that was just really a 1 year deal, just based on the fact that they didn't pick up the boy from Argentina. Is it Chocolates?
Chocobaris.
Yep. I don't think Zane Sullivan or Perifetta are players that should worry about RTS arriving in the Blues squad.
Just in terms of Bone Barrett will play 10 when he comes back. They won't put him at fullback. And he's also, and I think he's starting to see that his All Black jersey starting to become a bit risky by being going between 10 and 15 as well. So I think he's even made noises about the fact that he wants to cement a position as 10. So, and the reality is that I think when you look at when he was at the Blues last year, although they went well because just with that direction on the field, when he was at 15, they went even better when he was at 10.
Yep. He is the new Carlos. We've been waiting for the Carlos, or you guys have been waiting for the Carlos to arrive for so long. Talking of long gaps between things, folks, one of the if you become a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio, then you get access to my paywall or exclusive content. One of those videos that I will be doing is called The Lost Generation, which is looking at the fans over what's happened to the New Zealand fan base or supporter base over the last 20 years of professionalism, and looking at that lost generation. Also, if you do sign up for that, there's already a whole host of videos and podcasts for you. Has it been the Curry Cup on repeat, where where Yellow Cap joins me and we talk about what's been happening in South African rugby for the past year? Will Premiership ring fencing will it kill ambition? I had a chat with someone from the UK about that, and also there's a video up there already about the Pacific Islands getting into Super Rugby. Why now, and why the timing is right for that. So head over to New Zealand Sports, nzsportradio.com, where you can get access to those videos and podcasts. Yes, and Aaron's comment said Geordie could also come to the Blues next season as well. It become a bit of a logjam then, isn't it, for some of those back three players if Geordie turns up as well.
Well, it's an interesting one because I mean, like just before Aaron mentioned Geordie, because there's always been that it's not a rumor really, it's just that sort of like talk or scuttlebutt you might say, that Geordie really wants to play with Bowden. And that's the driver for him coming up to the Blues sort of thing. But before he brings that up, and you look at the fact that, okay, you have RTS and you can have Zahn Sullivan and Narawa and Kepkins, and obviously you still got your Caleb Clark there and Rico's, and what happens to TJ Fat. It's interesting because when you go down to the most successful franchise that there is, they seem to be able to manage to keep all their players no worries. Doesn't matter if they're sitting on fine. So... yeah, I think the other four franchises have to unlock whatever that and however they're doing that so that they can actually keep players and have that wider squad to enable that ongoing success and strength right throughout, even if you find that you're not playing as much.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, on tonight's news, it was confirmed back in 2017 there was an offer made to Anton Leonard-Brown to ship back to Christchurch, but he declined the offer at the time. So, man alive, just to think some of the talent they would have had sitting on the pine is actually quite crazy. Is it a good thing? I say no.
No, we know it's not a good thing. I mean, like if you've got, if you've got people that are top quality, top shelf, but they're not out there, it's not a good thing for the game.
Yeah, you're buying depth that could be at another franchise, and that disappoints me. Even the recent signing of the number
Pablo
8 Matera from Argentina, that to me it kind of disappoints me. Do they really need a marquee number 8 at the moment? Because to my way of thinking, I think Callum Grace was actually developing nicely in that number 8 jersey, and you had a really good backup in Douglas, or at the drop of a hat you could shift Sione Havili into that number 8 position, and he'd cover 3 of those positions equally well, as well as Ethan Blackadder, who I think could cover the 8 position. So to me, I just don't get it, guys.
I think it's an interesting one because it's something that I've been banging on about, particularly this season. Is the fact is that there's no doubt that the Crusaders side is still the strongest side out there, but their forward pack isn't the dominant forward pack that there has been in the past seasons, especially when you go in that front row in particular, apart from Cody Taylor. So is it a reaction to that, and they can see the fact that their dominance in the forward pack isn't as strong, and they're sort of saying, so we'll go world class?
Yeah, may have a bit to do with it.
Because then you've got Himeno down, another, let's not forget, another international number 8 down at the Highlanders as well.
Yep, and we thought, well, yes, but I guess the top, that's because the top number 8s are all up in Auckland, and with Satutu and Akiriwani, and then also down in, and then Ardi Surveyor. So yes, those are your top number 8s, you see. So South Island struggling for 8. That's why I'm having to go overseas shopping.
I was going to say, throw in Devon Flanders after last Friday night.
Yep.
As well. Yep. He looked pretty tidy in that 8.
He looked very good.
So the other news that's come out is around the mid-year internationals, folks, which are starting to shape up. Now, this is a mixture of official announcements and rumours as to what is or isn't happening. The expectation is that there'll be an announcement from World Rugby in the next 2 weeks confirming what the mid-year internationals there are going to be. So the island was supposed to be touring Fiji, but that has already been called off due to the COVID situation in Fiji, and also travelling around the world. The Italy was supposed to be coming to New Zealand to play 2 tests, and the rumour is that is going to be cancelled again due to COVID and travelling halfway around the world to play rugby games. Now, cricket seems to have coped with this, but rugby seems to be struggling much more so than cricket. I don't know why that might be, but I mean, Ashwin, you're a cricket expert. Why do you think rugby might be struggling? Whereas cricket has managed to travel around during COVID and play these test matches?
I have no answer to that, because the reality is that there's the blueprint, what you need to copy to allow travel around and sports to happen. So I really don't understand. I can understand Italy with the, basically with eliminated COVID, and they're coming to a country like New Zealand that it's rampant and, just boils up at an instant. So, I can understand Italy being precautious about not wanting to take COVID back to the European country. So maybe that's it. But I'm at an absolute loss. I mean, I couldn't understand why South Africa couldn't travel to Australia last year for the Rugby Championship. It still blows me away, because I still think, talking about cricket with the IPL and everybody, the IPL should be called off. The IPL should be called off. there's dire situations in India at the moment. So we'll take that as an example, right? The IPL brings joy to people. If you can keep it going, you keep it going, because it's not about the players. It's not about the dollars, actually. It's about the fact that you're still broadcasting cricket to a nation that loves the sport, that can sit at home while they're, while their mood's down. We know we were in lockdown for a month, and it brings your mood down. And it's like, so if you're able to watch a sport or something that you love on TV, it helps. Now, I'm not saying that you just keep it going until players start falling over, but while you can, you keep trying to stretch it as long as you can. And that was the same thing with rugby last year. COVID was rampant in South Africa, still is really. And the fact is that by the South African team coming over and sacrificing, their time, their situation, they would have brought joy back to millions of people in South Africa to be able to sit at home and to watch a sport while they're stuck at home, while they're being told to stay at home. So that's the thing, there's a job that we can play which goes beyond the actual winning or losing of the game itself.
Okay, so yeah, it surprises me. I don't understand what. Yeah, it does. And there is going to be some interesting decisions around this one, around some of these things. So, for example, Simon Hughes points out that Ireland are looking to play the USA in Dublin this July. Now, if Ireland were to travel to Fiji, then Fiji, as the host, gets to keep the income. We know that's how it works, folks, right? Now, Ireland's saying, oh, we don't want to travel to Fiji because of their COVID situation, which, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't followed it closely in Fiji, and I understand there's a bit of an issue at the moment, but on the whole, I don't think they've been particularly badly affected.
I don't think it's a big blowout.
So Ireland's suddenly hosting the USA. Would they give USA the hosting cash, or will they keep the cash for themselves, do you think? Okay. And we know that all the unions in Europe, in particular, well, all the unions worldwide, are cash strapped, which is why rugby is happening in the way it is. But that would be one of the big ones. So you got to wonder there with Ireland, is there a monetary thing that's involved? They're just asking the question. I'm not making any allegations per se. But as you say, Italy also have cut back, or have are talking about cancelling that one. There's an expectation that Wales will be their trip to Uruguay and Argentina will also be cancelled as well. And England's tour to the USA and Canada. It looks like, well, if the USA are going to come over to play Ireland in Dublin, then I can imagine that England would say, "Oh, well, you're over here anyway. Come and play us in England." And again, you got to wonder partly there as to how much the cash comes from this. Go on, Stephen.
Would you be cynical if some of these unions arranged matches somewhere else, given the excuses that they've used?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're arranging games at home where they get to keep the cash as a host, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Simon Hughes said the international game of cricket pays the sport. Well, the international game of rugby pays the sport as well, folks. Let's be honest. The All Blacks pay for everything in New Zealand. Super Rugby is run at a loss. So that's some of the news there. What that means for New Zealand, though, is that there is talk that New Zealand, who were already going to be playing Fiji at home, will have up to will be looking at having a second game against Fiji in New Zealand, and then also adding a game against Samoa. Apparently, Tonga isn't available due to Rugby World Cup qualifiers, and yet when I look at the Rugby World Cup qualifying situation, they have to play. I thought they were playing Samoa, but maybe Samoa is already through because Oceania won. But I found it a bit strange that that Tonga wouldn't be available because they're playing Rugby World Cup. Whereas at the moment, I thought they had to play Samoa, but maybe Samoa won it last year. And maybe Samoa already through as Oceania won, and therefore Tonga will be playing the Cook Islands to get to the next stage of the Rugby World Cup qualifying. That's why they're not available. So, look, in the article it says it's a huge step forward, a huge step in the right direction, or steps to sort of sort of helping the Pacific Islands and stuff. And they're like, well, look, it's only happening because Italy have pulled out. This isn't a strategic. This is a tactical move by the New Zealand Rugby to have games. And yes, it is good that they've turned to the Pacific Islands to get those games. But it's not a big strategic step to give the islands regular games in New Zealand by any stretch of the imagination. Thanks for the music break there by Stephen Harris.
Hey, just on breaking news. From what I can work out, looks like there's roughly around the 50 live cases in Fiji at the moment.
Okay.
From what I can work out, it's got here that they've had 121 cases, 68 have recovered. So, what's there, roughly about 50 odd cases going live at the moment, sort of thing. Then, if that's that's the way you read it.
Baz Nocturnal Right says we don't need Bill Beaumont in charge of World Rugby. We need Peter Volandes in there to sort things out.
He just makes it happen. Just make it happen. Just damn the torpedoes and just go ahead.
But what the running New Zealand rugby? How's he going to say it's an Australian?
No, running World Rugby. Let's get him at the top.
No, World Rugby, yes.
Everyone's sorted. So what do you think of that test lineup then, guys? Two games against Fiji and one against Samoa. Does that excite you against the All Blacks?
Yay.
Probably about a 6 out of 10, Paul. I mean to say, hard to know.
Okay,
so we're going to be played at
Italy and one game against Fiji. Would you prefer 2 games against Samoa at Fiji and one against Samoa?
Yeah.
Oh, nothing excites me, tell you the truth, because that means that's part of my season ticket, and that'll be at Eden Park in front of a more than half-empty stadium.
Feel the force. Feel the force.
No, that's well, I mean, like, Rugby Champion's still happening. They're talking about splitting the games between Australia and New Zealand. So and they're talking about the fact that there could be two tests on consecutive weekends for the Bledisloe, which they're saying hasn't happened for a while, which I find rather surprising.
3 tests on consecutive weekends.
Oh, right. Which hasn't happened for a while then, obviously.
Yep. So the first one would be in New Zealand. Then they would fly over to Melbourne, Australia, and play in Australia, and then fly back to New Zealand and play the third one in New Zealand. And with our open bubble, we can do that now. We can do it with our open bubble.
But it is, you just got to be careful. It is Melbourne. You don't know when they're going to lock down.
Australia is very keen that the game in Australia is not the final game, so that it is still a game.
Oh, look, I mean, but we talk about this last year, and I think even more so this year. Again, they have to pick a squad of 23 that can compete with the All Blacks. They don't need to have 120 players that can compete with the All Blacks. Only 23, and apart from maybe first 5, where there's sort of like a bit of an experience, but then you got your who's our friend up at the Reds? Mine's gone, James O'Connor. But that might be the. But you go across the field, they could put a pretty decent side together.
Yep.
I think. I mean, it's getting stronger as well. I feel it's getting it's stronger. It'll be Dave Rennie's first. Or did he coach last year, or was this season be his first?
No, he was coaching last year.
No, he was coaching last year. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, Steve.
No, I was about to say, last year I think he was still feeling his way around, and got a couple of decent results in there. Whilst he'd be disappointed with a couple of others, but some of those guys that he blooded last year are now a year older, and just watching the way some of them have performed in Super Rugby Australia, you can slowly start to see the improvement, and you've actually seen the improvement in a couple of the Australian Super Rugby teams, namely the Western Force. So Yeah, I think, like you say, it's all about just putting a good 23 together, and I
That's
think they're close.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, well, if you go back last year, I think we whipped them in the first one quite comprehensively, but the second one and was actually quite close, if I remember rightly. I'll go Google the results while you guys carry on talking.
Well, you mean the draw that we had last year?
Did we ever? Was it a draw? I mean, I'm old. Steve said we're old. We can't remember these things. What happened
First
5 minutes
game
ago?
was a
What were we
draw.
talking about?
First
So
game was a draw.
first game was a draw. There we go.
Yeah.
And then we gave him a bit of a then it was a comfortable win, and then I think the third was close again.
Yeah, I think Rennie probably learnt about a bit about being an international coach. That you're just pushing your luck a little bit, trying a whole lot of. If you recall, they had a very inexperienced second five in that return test, and they were basically exposed, shall we say?
Right.
So that's so we think that's going to happen. So Wellington, Melbourne, Auckland on consecutive weekends, the 7th, 14th, and 21st of August is what we're looking at, with 2 of them being part of the Rugby Championship. Not the third one, I think. So yeah, no, look, it'll be good. Actually, sorry, probably the second 2, not the first one. Looking at that, because obviously we'll have had the July test, and then after that will be the rest of the games. Probably with the Pumas game happening in either Dunedin or Hamilton, with the 100th game against the Springboks at Eden Park is kind of the plan. Quite how they'll do quite what will happen for the away games during the Rugby Championship has not been discussed. Didn't come through in the article that was on Stuff, but we'll have to wait and see how that all plans out. But yeah, look, hopefully the Springboks will come over for the Rugby Championship this time, as will the Pumas. They're looking at asking if the Pumas are. I mean, I can't see why not, but apparently they're looking for clearance as to once the Springboks are in Australia, will they be allowed to travel to New Zealand without quarantining again? You would imagine it would make sense they didn't have to, but we'll have to wait and see as to how that what those discussions are going. Again, we should hopefully hear in the next 2 weeks from SAMSAR. Wow, that organisation we don't need to hear from anymore. As to what's going to happen with the Rugby Championship.
So just going back to the results from last year. Last year was the first game. We whipped the Australians 43-5. And then in the second game, they tipped us up by 2 points, 24-22.
There we go.
So there we go. So yeah, I sort of think, I don't think, I think Australia's got enough cattle there to trouble the All Blacks if they're not on the game or if they're below par. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you get a Moanga who's hot on the day, they won't come close. That's just it. But if they're able to shut someone like him down, tables are turned and anything can happen at the Mickey Mouse Club.
I was about to say, did the Australians break a record in terms of draws in one season last year? Because they drew with the Argentinians twice, and did they not draw with the All Blacks? And
well, okay, so because I think the one that the game you might be referring to was outside of the Rugby Championship. So the information I've got in front of me is the Rugby Championship games.
No, okay.
So yeah, it vaguely does recall a draw last year as well.
Yeah, but in a calendar year, that's when I recall that was the weird game that went into. They played extra minutes and nobody could take the victory. A couple of missed drop kicks. I think a long range penalty from Reece Hodge hitting the post. So I think that was in Wellington, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So that looks like what's happening in July. Looks like Australia will have France. Now, look, one of the problems with Replace is that with the Lions tour happening to South Africa, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales are obviously all going to be weakened, and hence they don't want to be playing other tier 1 nations if they can help it. Australia have got the big ticket, which is France, and that's why New Zealand ended up with Italy, basically, who have now pulled out from that one. Stephen, do you want to take us through our Club Rugby section?
Yes, I certainly will. Once again, another round of Club Rugby in the northern region area, or the area that we're based in. And I'll start with Northland Club Rugby and a couple of interesting results from the weekend. It started, of course, last Friday night, Waipu hosting Hikurangi at home, 2 strong, 27 points to 0. And the following day, we saw, guys, I think I'm actually looking at the wrong results for last weekend. So, Paul, I'm going to throw it back to you while I find the right results. I'll go back to Ashwin.
Sorry, I just wanted to stoke the fire and go a bit.
That was that one fantastic. I had a bit of a meltdown from the weekend, and I actually got the wrong results, Paul. So I'm just tapping back on to find those results somewhere along the line. But of course, another round of Club Rugby the weekend as he goes into his tri-vac. Highly embarrassing, folks. So this may take a little bit of a moment as I find some time, because there was
while you're doing that, Steve, I'll answer what sorry, you ready?
Yeah, well, I've just found that Northern results, but just carry on. Just carry on, Ashwin.
I was just gonna but Nocturnal saying that the AB's forward pack being matched, and it's just like absolutely, but I've actually got up all the results from our games against the Australians last year. So it was a 16-all draw against the Wallabies at Wellington, where it said Reece Hodge missed that real long range. I think it hit the post, as Steve said. And then at Eden Park, it was 27-7. ANZ Stadium was a good old-fashioned thrashing for the Wallabies. And then that fourth and final one is where they tipped us over 24-22. So I think the forward pack, if the ABs, again, look, if the ABs step up, if they play to their potential, then the Wallabies are going to probably not have a chance of winning the game. But it is dependent on the All Blacks playing the A game, right, in not part of an A game, not an A minus, but an A game. And we saw last year where I can't remember a game where they actually turned it on. Maybe it was in that ANZ Stadium game in Sydney that they did, but really they didn't put in a complete performance last year. Put on top of that, you've got players, a Tupou who's been absolutely just building his game continually. And when you look at him when he's playing for the Reds, he can get a little bit loose at times, I think. But, the reality is that you give him the ball 10 out, and you got a good chance that he's going to go over. I mean, we saw the last game the Reds played, he went over from 22 out, so he beat back. So, I think there is some steel being built in that Wallabies forward pack as well that enables them to compete at least, and give them a shot if the All Blacks don't put in an A game.
Thanks for killing that time for us, Ashwin. We'll go again.
No.
You'll introduce me again to do those Club Rugby results from the weekend.
Give him his intro, quick, Paul.
In the Northern region area. I'll introduce myself. I'll get straight into it. Okay, round 6 of the Power Tyres at Northland Club Rugby was on the weekend. Saw some interesting results. A close result between Hora and a Waipu. Hora getting the victory, 36 points to 32. Now, the big upset of the weekend was the highly fancied Mid-Northern team that's loaded with Northland players. Well, they went down at home at Hukaranui at the famous home of the Going brothers. They're going down to Western Sharks, 33 points to 28. And I'm really curious to talk to somebody from the Western Sharks about that victory as well. The rest of the results, Kirikiri at home, 2 strong for Wellsford, 37-14. Old Boys Marist, the other team to watch in the competition, 36 points to 5 over Hikurangi. And Kamo, another unbeaten team, 25-14 over the much improved Ngāti Hine Moerewa UK. And how does our table look? Well, it's Old Boys Marist 28, Kamo 28. Those two teams on top. Mid-Northern after that lost 23. Real surprise. And Western Sharks 23. And that's the second loss for Mid-Northern. So a couple of little kinks in the armour. Heading on to North Harbour Club Rugby. Takapuna at home, 2 strong, 31-16 over Silverdale. North Harbour Marist, far too strong for Glenfield, 89-0. Great, good to see Glenfield with a side in senior rugby in 221, but obviously still finding their feet at this level again. Messi at home, 2 strong for Mahurangi, 51-12. East Coast Bays back in the winner's circle, 2018, and a close one over Northcote. And Kumu, after doing some good things in the last few weeks, went down to North Shore, 19 points to 11. As we look at the table, and it's North Shore, the only unbeaten team in North Harbour Club Rugby, with 21 points from Takapuna, also sitting on 21 by virtue of bonus points, sitting on 21. Northcote in fourth place on 20, and North Harbour Marist, good to see them sitting there in fourth place on 16 points. We move to Auckland Club Rugby.
Got to say with Kumu there. I mean, look, they're a village. They're not a village team. That's a bit that's harsh. They're one of the more sort of kind of royal team there in North Harbour competition, and so they're not embarrassed at 11-19. So yeah, even though they did go down, but still they're having a good season there, which is good to see.
Oh, very, very, very much so. Just that they lifted against Takapuna a couple of weeks ago. I remember they had that big upset victory, but since then they've gone down 35-14 to Kumu. So they would be very, very disappointed, probably just by their standards. Heading to Auckland Club Rugby, the Battle of the West. Well, it's Waitemata, who played Suburbs at home, who came away with the victory, a bounce-back victory for the West Auckland club by 38 points to 22. Ponsonby and University in a very, very close game. Of course, University, good winners over Waitemata the week before, and Ponsonby bouncing back after their loss to Eden, 25-22. Big win to Pakuranga, 67 points to 7 over Waitakere City, and our friend of the show, Dwayne Polatavao, one of the try scorers in that game. So we'll have to try and get Dwayne on at some stage, but a little bit hard on a Tuesday night when everybody's training, Paul. In other results, Papatoetoe 43, Otahuhu 32, Eden 35, Marist 6, beating them at home. And of course, Boa will be an unhappy soul at the moment as his team went down to Grammar Tech by 45 points to 3, and Grammar Tech unbeaten after 3 games. But it's Eden who are at the top of the table, having played that extra game, and 18 points. They're on top. Grammar Tech in second on 15. Pakuranga United, only the one loss, but sitting on 15, along with Ponsonby and College Rifles sitting in fourth equal on 15 points. So it looks like the heavy hitters are all starting to work their way to the top. Just before I get into counties Manukau results, I'll quickly get into the Auckland, women's results from the weekend. And boy, there's some pretty disappointing scorelines I've got to say here. This is round 4 of the Auckland women's competition. Ardmore Marist 42, Papakura 0. Manurewa 103, Grammar Tech 0. Now, what's interesting about that result, a lot of there would have been a few girls out of the Manurewa club who were playing for the Chiefs on a Saturday, so that's a disappointing result. And another heavy loss.
I can think of at least 3 players missing from that Manurewa team from the previous week. Yeah,
absolutely. Another big result: Marist 93, North Harbour Albany Barbarians 0. The game between Papatoetoe and Ponsonby was cancelled. I'm just wondering, a lot of those a few Ponsonby girls would have been running around for the for the Black Ferns. So,
well, for the
it just goes to show the women's rugby still has a little bit to do. And in the final results, College Rifles 102, Waitemata 0. So a couple of real blowouts there. Our top 4 teams: Ardmore, Marist, Ponsonby, Manurewa, and Marist holding up the top of the table. Ardmore Marist, the only unbeaten team in the competition, and we stay in the counties area. Interestingly enough, Ardmore Marist, the senior men's competition, which is the McNamara Cup, Ardmore Marist 40, Pukekohe 15. Karaka played Waihuku at home and beat Waihuku 15 points to 8. Bombay at home 34-17 over Onifero. And Patamohoi played Papakura at their home base, but beat them 20 points to 17. And Manurewa just continuing on their winning way, Paul, with a close game against Waimouth, winning by 97 points to 5. Not really. And,
not a close one. No, it's we're doing some very good work at the moment with their club. We've got to say 15 junior sides, which is impressive there. Oh. So look, they put a lot of work in there, and they're starting to see the fruits of that labour coming through on that one.
Paul, I was going to just say, just the one unbeaten team in the county's Manukau and that's Karaka out there on 24 points. Manurewa sitting quite tucked away quite nicely in second place on 20 points. Admiral Marist on 19 and Bombay on 16. And that concludes all the results that I have. All that research I do by just looking at it and snapshotting.
So yes, we'll quickly go through the Thames Valley Senior Rugby results. And Cobras took out the Silcock Shield in the Coast versus Country. The way it works over in Thames Valley is they've had a mini sort of competition in the first 4 weeks, and then the real competition kicks off this coming weekend. The Cobras beat Thames 33-23. In other games there, Waihi beat Paewara 24-5, and Whangamata lost to Waihu 17-21. I was also at the Bees game for that Waihi game. Happened actually on a Thursday evening due to the duck season starting last weekend on Saturday, and I think a lot of clubs would have tried to put in midweek games because of duck season and losing players to that. I saw Southland put out a picture saying, "Stays beers down." Oh, sorry, guns up, beers up, guns down. So yeah, if you are going to go hunting, folks, please do it safe. We did hear of 2 women who got shot as they were walking along the side of a river. Unfortunately, from duck hunters. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries there. But so be careful if you are going out duck hunting, folks. I was also at the Senior B game on Saturday with Waihi beating Natia 53-10 in that one as well. Simon Hughes makes a good point here that in the Bay of Plenty is that in their competition, obviously spread over a larger area with Rotorua and Tauranga being the main centres, is that he says it's a shame when all the Rotorua or the couple of Rotorua clubs both play away on the same weekend, meaning there's no actual club rugby to watch. So perhaps we'll have a chat with Bay of Plenty people as we know them, and have a chat with them about, hey guys, how about alternating who plays away? So there's always at least one club rugby game in Rotorua for people to watch. We'll pass on your comments, Simon. Thanks for letting us know your thoughts. Any other final things, boys?
Yeah, just on something Steve raised. I know we talked about this on Sunday, so we won't cover off too much. But just the fact that those scores now there were, so basically I saw a comment from somebody. I think it was on the radio. Actually, I might have heard it. Is the fact is that there was a game basically along those lines with the scoreline. The team that got beaten had a few girls that had just decided to give rugby a go from and coming out of high school, or just leave last year's high school, and they had a few mums that had sort of like the child was a bit older, and so they're coming back into the game, and they got smoked by 100 points, and they didn't come back the next week. So yeah, that's some of the thoughts that they have to really think about, or some of the things happening, I should say, they have to think about. You can't have that happening if you want to encourage people to stay in the game. They're not going to keep coming back if they're getting smashed by 100 points on a regular basis. It probably needs to work out some sort of tier system or something. But yeah, it's pretty hard to come into a new game or to come back to a game and you're getting smashed. It's interesting, It's such a different dynamic in the men's game, isn't it? I mean, like at a social level, even, or at a high level, there's an element of you play the game, the results actually doesn't matter. It's about going back to the club rooms and having. Well, no, I'm talking about not necessarily the Prem's level, but you say down the lower where you can start building those numbers, and some of those younger players will still move to the Prem levels eventually. But you're getting the numbers and staying in the game. But the guys will go back and they'll have a drink and they'll be with their mates and happy days. The score gets forgotten. Obviously not at a Prem's level. I'm not saying the score gets forgotten at a Prem's level, but at the lower levels, the score can be forgotten, and it's more about you have a drink and you're enjoying the company of your mates. So I don't know. Does that happen with the women's games as well? It's like, hey, look, we have the game, and what happened on the field gets flushed, and we have a good time afterwards. I don't know.
Hello, it's also an element. It's a history and tradition also are a big part of this. And look, there are some people who drive down from Auckland and over from Hamilton to Waihi for training on a Tuesday and a Thursday to play at the weekend, right? Because this is where they play where they played as a kid. Their mates are still here, and they're coming back to play. And fortunately, that kind of history isn't there in the women's game yet, because it is being started up. It takes time to build.
Takes time to build. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a matter of, as you said about, how do we make those games more competitive, more fun? Because we are playing, as you say, you've got players who have come straight out of school trying rugby for the first time, because a lot of teams only have one club, or maybe there's only one competition in that province, up against Black Ferns also playing in the same game. Now, there is no way in the men's game that club rugby players are going to be coming up. It makes sort of back page news when someone like Sonny Bill Williams or something goes back and plays in club rugby, because it's so rare. This
Braden Eno comes back and plays at club.
This kind of thing happens, but he's not an established All Black. We are talking about we're talking about established Black Ferns who have got 50 odd caps playing club rugby, and they will be coming up against people who are playing potentially their first game of rugby ever. And it's just because there isn't the volume yet to have that tiered system. Unfortunately, it's something needs to be worked on.
Guys, I want to. I see Jordan Clark is asking for our predictions, and obviously you'll have a preview show on Thursday night. I would imagine, Paul, for the Super Rugby finals coming up this weekend. Listen, I'm probably going to go the other way. Jordan's obviously saying the Brumbies are going to win by 6. I'm not so sure. I think this could be the year of the Reds,
year of the Reds.
At the Reds at home in front of a big Suncorp crowd. A couple of little injury niggles also for the Brumbies, and to be quite frank, I think there was a bit of a blueprint in terms of the Red defence laid down by the Force last weekend. I think the Reds will take it out this year, and it'll be a real. I think it'll be a good homecoming for the likes of Brad Thorne, who's done a wonderful job. With regards to the Super Rugby Aotearoa, as much as I want to see this game be competitive, I think the Crusaders will eventually grind the Chiefs down. I think they've got a bit of a point to make, in some of the reports that I've been reading this week. They've lifted the ante in and around their training, and they may have a couple of guys back from injury as well. Braden Enor, decision to play Braden Enor is going to be left late, but boy, that's pretty handy to have that sort of quality come off the bench. Just remembering he's already he's had a couple of club games under his belt as well. So really interesting there. And my other quick thing, just want to mention a player who played for the Chiefs last Saturday night, but I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought he outplayed an All Black on the night. Gus Sawakula, does he hang in there to become an All Black? Or you mentioned the Fiji Drua before. Ashwin, does he head away and play for the Drua and throw in his lot with Fiji, where he could be a standout international number 8? Because I thought in a losing team last weekend, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Whether he was carrying the ball and the number of times that he was able to get his hands, or at least get over the ball, whether it was legally or not, was to slow ball down, was absolutely outstanding. So I'm curious to get your thoughts, guys.
Yeah, look, unfortunately for him, I think he throws his lot in with Fiji. He doesn't have to go to play for the Drua to be able to play for Fiji. They'll be able to select him out of the Chiefs. It's just the fact is that he might not be able to pick up a Super Rugby contract. Ongoing will be the problem there. But I think he goes to play for Fiji. I think you've got quite a lot of number 8s that are probably ahead of him in the picking order as far as the All Blacks go. I know what you're saying. Look, I mean, the game that the Blues played down in Hamilton, Peter Gosukula had a pretty quiet night that night, actually, because normally when the Chiefs play the Blues, one of their strongest players is Sokula. And so the way that he performed at Eden Park is what he does against the Blues. So what he needs to do is to make sure he puts that against every team. And he does to the most part, but not quite to the level that he does against the Blues. He really does rip them open usually when he's playing against them. So, but, to answer your question, I don't think he'll crack the All Blacks. So reality is, because he's been around a bit now. He's probably mid-20s now at least.
Well, out of the battle for the two Fijian number 8s on the night, I thought he probably.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought he was the better player, and I'm going to get your predictions as well, Ashwin.
Oh, Reds, and look. I mean, you can't go past the Crusaders. It's the fact is that, as I keep saying, at the end of the day, if I was going to put money down on it, you go put money on the Crusaders. But I definitely think that the Chiefs have got a more than a starter's chance down there, especially if they keep Mo'unga quiet. That's the key.
The Crusaders and Reds have earned home field advantage for a reason. And they will both go in as favourites. Absolutely.
Oh, I think so. Steve referred to as niggles. I haven't heard the updates, but when you watch the Force game, the Brumbies game against the Force last week, you got Slipper and Samu, and then they definitely look. Well, they look like on game day. They look like they're out for a few weeks. So I haven't heard what the injury update on them is. And then there were a few other players that went down with some pretty decent niggles as well. So I think they're pretty banged up, the old Brumbies. The Reds will have had a bye and be quite rested. I don't think it'll be close. It's uncalled. What I'm really hoping is that it gets close to a sellout, if not a sellout, because they've already sold something like about 35,000 tickets.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm hoping, I mean, just imagine what a boost to Australian rugby if that's played in nearly or a sellout stadium.
Well, okay, there's been some creative accountancy, as there always is, when we're talking about attendance numbers and audience figures, etc. So, look, there was an article in the week around or last week maybe, around how the TV audiences were up. Yes, but they only counted the games that were on free to air. They didn't count the games that were just on Stan. So, funny enough, yes, no wonder they were up. But look, what you can't deny is that they had their biggest the biggest attendance at a Super Rugby game in 5 years for the Reds versus Brumbies game. So that's good.
In Queensland.
In Queensland, yeah. Now finished 24-22. The previous game had been 38-40. The Reds have only beaten the Brumbies, by 2 points in both those games. Look, it's going to be a cracking game. They clearly go in as favourites. I think they're both going to be cracking games. Definitely worth watching. We will be live straight after the Super Rugby Aotearoa final between the Crusaders and the Chiefs. So join us for post-match reaction straight after the final whistle on that one. And as Stephen said, Cornflake will be providing us his preview on Thursday, around about 5 p.m. For that as well. So obviously out as a podcast. Don't forget to search for New Zealand Sports Radio on your favourite podcatcher. Anything else, boys?
No, that's about it, I think, eh?
Fabulous. So don't forget, folks, you can sign up as a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio. A couple of other supporter-only specials coming out will be a wasted crisis and how to invest 200 million. Which you can obviously guess what those two topics are going to be about, both rugby-based. I have done non-rugby supporter specials, but predominantly they are rugby-based. So head over and become a supporter of NZ Sports Radio. And I'll catch you all tomorrow morning with the sports briefing, with the morning sports briefing at 7 a.m. We're there.